you and I thought that this week's episode was too important to delay its release. We are going to be interviewing former North Carolina Tar Heel, three-time NBA champion, 15-year NBA veteran, Scott Williams. And it's not just about what he did with Jordan that will, capture your attention and your imaginations. It's not just how he was able to survive in the league for 15 years. When you hear how he got there, which I was not fully aware of, Danny, it really takes you aback, and you marvel at his journey. Without giving too much details, I know you did.
Yeah. Well, I thought I went through some trials and tribulations in college, but this man said he has gone through some things, man, and nobody knows the way he handled it, the way he succeeded. Said the things that he has experienced would have broke probably 90% of the world, if not more. But to see him be successful as he is now, and even back then, to continue to do that with the hand he's been dealt, it just shows you what kind of character he's built and what kind of man he's come to be from being coming from Carolina and being behind Coach Smith. He dedicated his newest book to Coach Smith and his mother. We'll let you guys hear from him, and he'll give you some more details and insight on what is to come from the book.
Yeah, we'll hear from him in just a moment. But just a real quick update. There is a high school basketball tournament taking place in the city of Atlanta. Danny has been a part of this organization of a tournament called The Throne, where best teams from all over the country, or best players from all over the country, are teaming up with other players in their states, and it is pretty much formulating or operating as a national high school basketball championship. The games are airing on FS1 and NBA TV. Danny has his hands in it a bit. Now, Danny is not in Atlanta where the games are being played because he's dealing with an illness. But Danny, I know you are also excited about that and encouraging people to go out and watch.
I was super excited, man. I was supposed to be there, but COVID got your boy locked in. So I've been in the house, locked up in quarantine for the last couple of days, hopefully be out in the next couple of days. But I was supposed to be in Atlanta, but this is one that I'm super proud of, man. And I have to give my flowers where flowers are due to Darren Duncan, who is the brains and legs behind the whole operation. He's been amazing with it and getting things in place. The NBPA was amazing with helping us and partnering with us to get this done. We had some great schools come aboard. This is year one for us. So said NBA TV, Fox Sports, be able to air it. It's a big deal, man, and I'm excited to see what comes about. So those who are tuning in and listening, it may be too late when you hear this, but I've been posting it on social media and Instagram and Twitter to find and get your tickets. But be sure to get your tickets is the best way possible. And check out the games. They start tomorrow afternoon, I believe, or tomorrow evening. So be sure to check them out. And you can find where to get tickets on my social media or anybody else's social media from the Throne Hoops at Throne Hoops, and Darren Duncan, who has his own gold level production program. But yeah, be sure to check it out, man. It should be a fun time, especially if you love high school hoops. And I sure love it. I know you guys will too.
Danny Green, a man of many things, an NBA veteran, an ambassador of youth hoops. I think this is what you've helped put together some high school showcase events at Barclays Center before. And this is just another venture in your commitment to the sport of basketball. And as much as it's given you, as much as you've given it, I'm sure it's given you a lot. And what it has given us most recently is a fantastic interview for your podcast as we get to meet Scott Williams and know his story of triumph. And we'll take a break here. And after this, you'll hear from Scott Williams. And we are back. Another episode of Inside the Green Room with Danny Green. And this time around, for those who are listening or watching, we are joined by somebody else who's won 3 NBA titles. We are joined by former North Carolina Tar Heel, 15-year NBA veteran, Grand Canyon color analyst, Scott Williams. Thank you for joining the show, my friend.
Harris and Danny, I am so grateful to be here. It is indeed a good day to be a Tar Heel. I have watched you guys. Your show is wildly successful and popular. My son's a big fan.
Man, thank you. Now we've been big fan. I can't say much for Harrison. He probably was a Knicks fan growing up, but me, I was a Bulls fan growing up. My dad, I hate to say this publicly, but I've noticed as I've gotten older that he kind of was a little bit of a bandwagoner. But he likes the good teams, and he was a fan. I would say everybody's a fan of Michael, but he never was a Knicks fan. Thankfully, he didn't raise me that way. But I got a chance to watch you guys, through the 90s quite a bit, man. I was a big fan of you and, of course, Mike Scotty, the whole team. I used to watch the Unstoppables, the tapes, the videos, and all the highlights. So I know quite a bit about you guys. But it's first time get a chance to hear it up close, first and foremost, and the fans get a chance to hear it. You get a chance to describe your time there in Chicago, also in Chapel Hill. But first, I would like to get to what you have coming up next. For you, you have this book coming out. Tell us a little bit about that and why you decided to now, and give us a little synopsis of it and what the fans should look forward to.
Yeah, Dan, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and share a little bit about this project. Kind of started during the pandemic. Remember when everything shut down, there was no sports, and the Michael Jordan's The Last Dance came out, and I loved planning my Sunday nights around the show. And I got a chance to reconnect with some of my teammates as they tipped back all the way back into what I like to call the first dance, that first set of 3 championships. So talking with guys like Stacey King and B.J. Armstrong, Will Perdue, reminiscing, got me thinking about my career and how I got started. And I went, I started putting little things on Facebook, and everyone says, you should write a book. I'm like, well, I ain't no author. I played 15 years in the league. I don't know if I got the skill. I wasn't a poor student, but, I thought that was next level. So, after thinking about it for a little while, I did an interview for a gentleman named Ben Guest. He was writing a book. And I said, I'm thinking about maybe doing myself. Would you help me? So Ben and I collabed on this thing, and we took it all the way back, and it's real and it's raw. I go back to my time, being recruited by Coach Smith when he came out to my house in California, invited my mother to come with me to our official visit. And she just fell in love with Chapel Hill. And she, before we arrived on a Friday, and before we left on Sunday, she was already, elbowing me in the ribs, tell Coach Smith coming. I'm a Southern California kid. I didn't know about going all the way across country and back to the South. I always wanted to go to UCLA and be a Bruin. So I said, well, come down, Mom. I gotta just go take my visit to UCLA. But I fell in love with the campus, and she wanted me far away from home. I grew up in a house with a lot of verbal
less distractions.
Well, it was a lot of verbal and physical abuse, Danny. Okay. So my dad would beat on us and put us down and beat on my mom. So she wanted to get me as far away as possible.
Sorry to hear that.
From Los Angeles. Yeah. So right before my sophomore year, I got a knock on my door. The first day of practice, and my roommate answered, said, Coach Smith's at the door. And I was like, oh no, what is Coach Smith doing on my door at 7:30 in the morning? Like, I thought I had screwed up, missed a class. I'm gonna be running to the golf course from the Smith Center for like a month.
Oh, I know those punishments.
Yeah, a weighted vest on the stairs. So my palms start sweating immediately. And he comes in and asks my roommate, Jeff Denny, he goes, Jeff, would you step out? And he said, your dad found your mom and shot her and killed her. And then he turned the gun on himself and he killed himself. So, had I been anywhere else but Carolina with Coach Smith and the Carolina family, and me being here on your podcast is evident of the legacy that he built, because guys that I didn't play with that played after me, guys that played before me, it's like a brotherhood for us. We're family. And that structure wrapped around a warm blanket around me, being in practice with my teammates, having to concentrate on a Dean Smith practice. And Roy Williams had me for about 45 minutes. He'd wear me out as the big man coach, and being able to go to Coach Smith's office and talk to him when I was feeling really down. And I had some dark down days when I wouldn't sleep and kind of got after the beers too much. And I had to figure it out. Like, you got practice coming up here in 45 minutes, and he'd been ready to work your tail off. He didn't take it easy on me. He didn't say, okay, you look tired, have it, sit down on the sideline. No, he sensed those days and got after me even harder. So it gave me a sense that if I can survive that, there ain't much in life that life's going to throw at me after that I am not going to be able to survive. So I wrote this book as a tribute to my mother and Coach Smith, who passed, as you know, Danny, 8 years ago. Because one of the things that we always had on our practice plan was a thought for the day, along with an offensive and defensive emphasis. We had a thought for the day. One of the ones that always kept coming up was, it's never too late to do the right thing. Short and sweet, but just meant a lot. And I went, here it is, over 30 years later. If I can do some good, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, man.
The book is called Through the Fire, a memoir of trauma and loss, basketball and triumph. Go ahead and get yourselves a copy now. It obviously seems here, Scott, that you have gone through a myriad of challenges here in your life and playing career. I find myself curious, and we could dip all the way back in without giving away the whole book. But I find myself curious. You go through those struggles there at North Carolina. How did you even build up the confidence, the persistence, the perseverance to then go to the NBA and not be drafted?
You know, Harrison, like I said, I owe a lot, and I give a lot of thanks to Coach Smith. It's on the back cover jacket, because even if somebody doesn't buy the book, I want them to know that if they read the preview, what the man meant to me. He literally would not let me give up on myself. I wanted to sit the year out and go back in California, and he said no. He said he promised my mother that he would look out for me when I was in school. He wanted me close to him. He knew if I was away from the program, I would drift away. And there was probably a good chance I wouldn't have come back to North Carolina, and I wouldn't have finished school. And I would have given up on my dream of playing in the league. So having that support, everybody from Angela Lee and Ruth and
they're still there.
Woods, everybody in that office, man, I'm telling you, there was days when they would take me Angela would grab me in the sob after practice and drive me back and cook a home cooked meal for me, or Lily and Lee would come, and Howard would come pick me up, scoop me up and take me back to their house for some grub, or Mr. and Mrs. Denny would come on campus and bring some food and clean, my little dirty apartment. So it was just the right place to be. And I was very fortunate. The reason why I wasn't drafted was I had a bad shoulder. I used to dislocate and sublux, and I'd pop out in games sometimes, and like Mel Gibson style, I'd pop it back in, or I could get it in. The doctor would do it on the bench, but I never missed no time for it. And when I didn't get drafted, I was embarrassed, and I wrote down every player's name that got drafted in the 2 rounds before me. And I said, okay, I gotta go to work. And if I'm going to play against pro guys, I got to get some experience against them. And Michael Jordan was playing in a camp in Greensboro for some underprivileged kids that he put on with Fred Whitfield called the Hoop Team. And I went down there, and J.R. Reed, who I played with in school, and Kitty Gaddison, Charles Oakley, and bang with those cats. And I was on Jordan's team, and I got an offensive rebound late in the basketball game, which was, they never let me shoot. So I had to get offensive rebound. I found 23 in the right corner and fired a strike to him. He hit the game winner. Duh. So after the game, he's leaving, and he calls Jerry Krause, says, hey, I think we should give Williams a tryout. So Krause contacted my agent, and I ended up trying out on their summer league team. And that's kind of the rest is history. Made the veterans roster, got the last spot on the team, and rode MJ's coattails to 3 championships.
Wow, that's a hell of a story, man. So I can only think back to the time that I had at Carolina, and some of the stories that come full circle where guys get a second chance or an opportunity. But so during that time, just being, and I don't know if you guys had the same access, but having the gym 24 hours of access give me an outlet, for the time that you thought about quitting or giving up or transferring or going back home. So thinking about your story, I can't imagine what you went through or even relate to even come close to that. But my dad was the head of my household, and when he was incarcerated my freshman year, I didn't know what to do. So I had to figure out if I was going to transfer, stay or not. And the gym being 24 hours access was my outlet to go there, work out at nights, clear my mind, that type of deal. But yes, to hear about some of the things you went through and have Coach Smith said, I've only heard some of the stories, and I got a chance to meet the man, very few times. And learn a little bit about him, but to hear about how much he cared reminds me a lot of how Coach Williams cared, and how he would look out for some of his players and house them and keep them there. Some of them might have ruined it, but some of them took advantage of it and got a chance to get a degree and then circle back and get a second chance on life and actually take those life lessons and those thoughts of the day and be better human beings. So I remember those thoughts of the day all the time, and I have a couple of favorites, and I try to carry them on and bring them throughout. And so I carry them on to different teams. And in Memphis, we had similar situations where you put up a little different thoughts on the wall. But yeah, man, that's amazing that your story started that way and how it ended for you. It's crazy how I think about. So when I talk to my parents and my brothers, a lot of the guys that started off with a lot of limelight early on are the ones that kind of, I won't say burned out quickly, but don't keep that edge the way that the guys that usually that don't, I guess, that are the late bloomers are usually the ones that last longer for some odd reason. So I tell I tell the parents, my brothers, the friends, the family, don't worry about where your kids are right now. You want them to continue to work for something. If they're already great now and they get all the limelight, most likely they're going to be like, I don't need to work out anymore, or people are going to catch up to them. But to see you said as a non-drafted guy win 3 rings and get an opportunity from a summer camp is an amazing story, man. And lets anybody know that if right time, right place, anybody can do it.
Yeah, Danny, I really appreciate sharing that. I didn't know about your father, and you're right about that court being therapeutic. I had Linnea Smith, Dr. Linnea Smith, Coach Smith's wife, recommended I see somebody immediately after the tragedy. And I met with a guy a couple times, and I just did not feel comfortable. I'm 20 years old. I didn't feel comfortable speaking with somebody I didn't know. And my teammates, being on the court with them, having to bang and sweat and run lines, the gut checks. That was my therapy. So it's interesting that you found the same sort of help on the floor as well. When I wasn't drafted, I told you I wrote down everybody's name. I had a chip on my shoulder for at least 2 years. It wasn't even after I'd made the team. It was 2 years later, after we won the second championship, that I just finally realized that from as far as I started, from sitting the bench 3-4 games in a row sometimes, and I'd be coming out of my sweatsuit as a rookie, to playing, the entire fourth quarter when we were 15 down to win our second championship, the greatest comeback in the history of the NBA Finals, and I played all 12 minutes. And we cut it to 3. Then they brought MJ back, and he took over. Let's keep it real, but he scored 12 of our last 19 points.
You were part of the group.
But we cut it to 3. The bench buds, man, we were doing our thing out there. So, I got to play all the minutes. I had an epiphany after that game, like, I can play in this league as long as I want. From where I started, with a bad shoulder, not getting playing time, used to dislocate in training camp, and I didn't want anybody to know, and I'd try to slip it back in without letting the coaches, coaching staff know, and they throw me, when I was on the sideline. And so much times my teammates would cover for me, and they knew it came out. They'd sub in for me real quick, like, Williams, get on out of your tank. So I always appreciate it. They were like my brothers. Still good for contact with a lot of those dudes today. But to think about, having to sneak, we practiced at a health club back then, right? The league was different. We practiced at a health club, and we'd go 2-a-days during training camp. And between the first session and the second session, they'd open up the floor to the health club floor. They'd open it up to the doctors and the dentists and the lawyers. And the Bulls wouldn't let me practice with the team. So I used to have to sneak in between their sessions and get a sweat. I'd play the point like Magic Johnson, who I idolized growing up. I'd be directing people, making passes and shooting from the perimeter, just so I could get a run and keep my time and keep my vision. And then to making that comeback, that to me was like the best feeling in the world. It was an epiphany. Like, I just thought that now I can play as long as I want. And I went on to play 15 years, and to always think, well, you're going to win 3 championships. Hey, I'm going to win a lot more. But your role changes. I took on that role you talk about, Danny, putting up thoughts of the day, bringing in little inspirational quotes, getting guys to work together. I remember my time in Phoenix, Marbury and Hardaway, they were fighting us whose team was it going to be, right?
Yeah.
Trying
and
to
you
get
being the glue guy,
together, realize that.
Yeah.
Try to get these cats to play together, Danny, and realize, like, hey, the better the team does, the bigger the spotlight for all of us. So we were supposed to finish like 28th in the league. We ended up making the playoffs and took the Spurs, who were number 1. We stole the first game, then stole the third game, and then they stepped on our throats after that. But it was a good time. So you take on this role of what those guys like Paxson and Cartwright and Jordan were to me as a rookie and a second-year player. You try to help some of the younger cats that are still trying to figure it out.
For sure. And so I think we both were fortunate to be at an organization or an institution like University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, having Dean Smith and me having Coach Williams, knowing that they were going to push us in the right direction and push us the way we needed to be pushed to become grown men, or the men that we were supposed to be. And I always heard from, everybody around me, when you're a kid, you don't really understand it. You know, like they tell you like, well, the reason why he's on you is because he cares. If he didn't care, then he probably wouldn't be on you. So I think he was on me the most because he knew I could take it mentally, but he knew what I could potentially be. And I think that's the reason why Coach Smith was on you. He knew that he's preparing you for the world. And that's why he was probably on you more than the average or the rest of the guys on the team, and knew that you needed it more than everybody else. But, you know, Coach Williams definitely prepared me for it. And then in Pop as well. Very challenging. And they knew, you know, you had to play with that chip in your shoulder. You're not that talented enough to be, you know, that guy, and to not play like, you know, your job is at risk every day. So playing for Coach Williams and playing for Pop definitely had me said you don't get a chance to really have an epiphany or reminisce as much until your job is done. So it's like you're constantly looking over your shoulder, who's trying to get my job, and you might have won too, but you didn't realize what you accomplished until it's already happened. You're like, oh man, I just played in the finals. You get a chance to let it soak in because you're so worried about looking forward to the next thing and to keeping your job. You know, for me, it said I don't get a chance. I try not to reminisce as much because I don't want to be satisfied. And you know, it's one of my favorite thoughts of the day that Coach Williams put up is you can tell when someone's, you know, natural forward progression has come to a cease is when they become satisfied type situation. So I try to make sure that, you know, I was never satisfied at what I've accomplished and continue to strive for more. And, you know, there's times you can reminisce here and there, but I try not to reminisce too much. But they definitely pushed me in the right direction playing for Coach Williams and Pop. And I'm sure Coach Smith for you as well.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and like I said, I had Coach Williams for 2 years. I had Coach Guthridge that took over. I helped recruit Hubert Davis to North Carolina, the head coach now. So I feel like if you go all the way back to the 60s, all the way to the present day, 23, I got a connection to that whole lineage of coachings and the knowledge that you get from guys like that. You know, you had Pop in the league. I had Phil Jackson. And I didn't always appreciate Phil Jackson at the time because I was low man on the totem pole. So I ain't gonna yell at Jordan, right? He's gonna come down to a little undrafted rookie, and I'm catching hell after playing 6-8 minutes. Like, what are you yelling at me for? But you knew he wanted to push you, to keep you hungry in practice, keep you motivated. Like I said, I had my list, and I wasn't gonna stop playing until I had played longer than everybody on that list. And that kept me going. That kept me hungry. I played like I was on a non-guaranteed contracts. That's what I played on for my first 4 years. So even after I signed my big deal in Philly, an 8-year contract, a long-term deal, not a big deal, small money.
They used to have them 8-year contract. Wow.
But I signed the last 8-year deal in the history of the NBA, Danny. They say, "Oh hell no, we ain't doing no more of that." They outlawed it for everybody. After that, they said we ain't getting burned like that again. But you know, I played longer than everybody on that list except for one cat. You can probably guess who it is. From the 1990 draft cast. The only Hall of Famer from the draft cast goes by the name The Glove.
Oh wow, Gary Payton, one of my
yeah.
He was a good one though.
He kept playing year after year. I'm like, damn.
But 15 is a long time, man. So you do 4 years of college, 15 years of league.
I finally, my back, my knees, everything was shot. I was like, okay, I got to give it up.
You definitely earned being an author. You'd be able to tell a lot of stories throughout all those years. But I said I got to give a big shout out to the people. Said during the times that we went through our rough stages at Chapel Hill, my brothers there and my brothers said in San Antonio were a big part of it. And I want to take the time to shout out Eric Montross as he's going through his cancer treatments, and a lot of what we have brought to him, the Carolina family, to uplift him, keep his spirits, you know, great and bright, has helped him, you know, through this time. So it was a big comfort. That was another blanket for us, having those guys around me during that time to be able to keep me, you know, sane and keep me happy, keep my spirits lifted. And also during San Antonio time when I had some rough patches, people don't realize how much that impacts you. You know, your employees, the people you work with on a day-to-day basis, and how it can impact you in a positive light or a negative light. If you hate your workspace or you hate your job, it's going to affect your whole life and your whole lifestyle. So being able to wake up every day and be a part of something with my brothers made it a lot easier, and able to kind of, you know, not think about the bad things and the bad times. So, you know, that's what I love about Carolina the most: the family, the brotherhood, and the blanket they provide for us when, you know, things are rough.
Well said, Danny. I'm glad you mentioned that about Eric, because he was a teammate of mine for a short period of time in Philadelphia before they traded me out of there. But what a great dude, great family man, wonderful in the community. So, you know, I second what you said, you know, and then if anybody wants to try to send something to E, a card, a well wish, you can get them at the Rams Club, 450 Skipper Bowles Drive, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So you can find him there and send him some well wishes that I know he'll like that.
I appreciate you for that, Scott. Thank you.
We can tell from listening to the dialogue between these two North Carolina alums that the bond between Tar Heel Nation is definitely strong. I'm sure with everything that's happened in Danny's career, he could write a book, and obviously Scott has just written one. If you didn't hear at the beginning of the show, Through the Fire, a memoir of trauma and loss, basketball and triumph. Scott, I want to get to some stories about your time with Jordan or any other time in your 15-year career, but I am curious as it pertains to the process of writing the book, with all the details that you had to go through, not just your playing career, but everything that impacted you during your playing career. What was the most difficult story that you had to tell, or the most difficult time as you were sitting down with Ben Guest and trying to visualize or put down the words of everything that you went through?
Well, I loved him. I loved MJ. He was a fierce competitor. My time with the Bulls, like I said, I was there to work harder than everybody on the team, and I did that except for Michael Jordan. That dude came in after having lost to the Pistons 3 years in a row like a smoldering dragon. I literally get chills thinking about how hard we pushed ourselves to work, because he was the one out there leading by example. And if you were half-stepping, man, if you weren't there to compete every day and every drill and locked in on the game plan for the game that night, didn't know player personnel on the other team and how we were going to guard certain cats. If you were messing up on a consistent basis, MJ would be in your face. So we had a guy on our team, and this is one of the things that I kind of had to sugarcoat for the book, because it was the saddest thing that I ever saw during my 15 years in the NBA, the way MJ would go at a cat named Dennis Hopson. Hop was a great guy. He had averaged 30 points at Ohio State, led the nation in scoring. He was 16-point game scorer at New Jersey Nets for 4 years before being traded to the Bulls. He was there to bring some backup relief and some scoring from behind Jordan. And they put him in front of Jordan every day in practice. And Michael, he wouldn't even call him Hop. He called him Dennis. He was the only cat on the team would call him Hop. He was in his face, nose to nose. He'd talk trash to him. He'd get physical with him. He verbally and physically beat this man down until he was a shell of a player that he was. And it was the worst thing that I ever saw. But it was that he just didn't know how to turn it off. Michael was that intense every day. It wasn't a personal thing. He just wanted Hop one day to go enough and just throw down and get chest to chest with the Michael. Because we played starters versus the bench guys. Phil always had starters versus the bench guys. He didn't mix it up.
When they had real practices back in the day.
Kicked every day in practice. We ain't win any day except for one. When Hop finally did what I said, just said, banging MJ with elbows and shoulders and taking him to the hole and not backing away from the contact, getting physical with him on defense and knocking him to the ground. And we won that day. And we were so happy for Hop. We literally, Stacy and I literally lifted him on our shoulder. I remember we're at a health club. We lifted him on our shoulders and paraded him around the health club by the spa where ladies were getting their nails and their hair did. And like we had just won the championship. We had never beat them before, right? So we thought, okay, this is the start of something. Now Hop's ready to go. And then the next day,
got trashed again.
It's all Hop again. He made it a couple games into the following season, and they had to trade him. But that was one story that I had to sugarcoat a little bit for the book.
Was that just
MJ
because
had no
the
chill.
words,
He just had no
the
chill.
words from MJ? I see.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. But MJ just had no chill when it came to competition. And he didn't know how to let Hop up off the mat a little bit just to get him some confidence every now and again. He just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, he's just going straight for the jugular every possession.
Every 2-on-2.
I mean, but to be great, right, you have to be somewhat of a bully, right?
He
got to have that killer.
I love playing for him, but Hop wanted, he wanted the NBA lifestyle, bro. He liked the cars, he liked the clothes, he liked the status. He wasn't there to put in that work every day on the same level, Michael.
Yeah.
And Michael knew that, and that pissed MJ off.
So so you get into the NBA undrafted, you go to this summer league game, and MJ refers you, and all of a sudden you end up a Chicago Bull. You win 3 titles off the rip. If I know it's a difficult ask that I have for you right now, but if I had to, and outside of that, come back in the fourth quarter, if I had to ask you, said you could only bottle up one memory from your 3 championships, it could be a plane ride, it could be a celebration, it could be a party,
turning point, something that changed your career, something that made your career, something that just
not even
enjoyed.
a turning point, not even a turning point. Just like if I said Chicago Bulls first 3 chips, what is that first image or the lasting image that comes to your mind?
I think I touched on it a little bit. 92. I dislocated a finger, required surgery. I opted not to do it because I had cracked the rotation. I told you about having to sneak into practice between sessions as they looked at another player, Mark Randall, that they wanted to try to give my job to. Working my way to where I was the first big off the bench in the Eastern Conference Finals against the New York Knicks. Playing in the NBA Finals, heavy minutes, and thriving in Game 1 where we won by 30 points. Playing in the fourth quarter down 15 when I know Phil Jackson wouldn't tell you this, Danny, but he threw the towel in. He was looking forward to Game 7.
Oh, he pulled the plug. He threw the guys and said, "You guys go ahead and see what you can do."
Yeah, okay, put the mop-up crew in there, right?
Yeah.
The only starter he left out there was Scottie Pippen because we didn't have a ball handler.
Yeah.
But that was proud because, like I said, those were the cats that we played with. We never mixed up starters and bench guys. So he threw us out there. We looked at each other like, this dude don't think we can do it. Let's go shock the world. And Hansen hit a 3, and Pippen scored inside, and Stacey King got a bucket and one on a flagrant foul. And next thing you know, that the Chicago Stadium that was lifeless was roaring. And we caught some of that energy and adrenaline, and we chopped into that deficit, cut at the 3. And like I said, they put MJ back out there to sick him, and the rest was history. But that year, 92, start to finish, was probably my proudest moment in the league.
I also wonder too, if we go back to if you go to 93, 94, and this is where you and Danny have a little bit of a parallel too. Obviously, you guys both went to North Carolina. So Danny starts his career with the Cleveland Cavaliers and didn't get any minutes. And and end of the year, what happens? LeBron goes off to Miami, and now the whole thing in Cleveland is upside down, topsy-turvy. The Cavaliers did not see Danny's worth on the team, and all of a sudden Danny's no longer a Cleveland Cavalier. You're with the Chicago Bulls, you win 3 championships, everything is gravy until, let me make sure I get the right date, October 6, 1993. Michael Jordan retires. What do you remember from that moment, and how did you predict at that time it was going to impact your career?
Well, for me, we had a press conference, and I think Jerry Reinsdorf, who was our president of the ball club, said that it was a time for celebration. But you looked at the players' faces; it was like a funeral. Nobody celebrating his retirement. We knew one of the greats of the game, and I consider him the greatest of all time. Dan, I don't know where you weigh in on that, Harrison.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Yeah, it was like a funeral, and I felt bad because I knew what the pain was to lose a parent that was murdered, and I felt in my heart that MJ's stepping away from the game didn't have to do with him not feeling like he had anything else to accomplish, like he had said. I don't think it had anything to do with the demands from the fans. I I think he needed time to mourn the loss of his dad, who was, murdered for his car and his ring, for people that don't know that story, on the highway. So I didn't know. I was so triggered by that event. I didn't know how to reach out to MJ and try to embrace him and let him know what I was going through, because I had suppressed a lot of my feelings up until that point myself. I hadn't really dealt with my own stuff. And I write in my book on how even to this day, I've never talked to him about that. And it's one of the biggest things that I regret, not being around him more. I mean, I can still text him and he'll text me back, but I don't have that time with him to really say, I kind of feel bad that I didn't do more to help you, or at least be there if you needed someone to talk to about what had happened to his father. And I think when he got away from the game and he had a chance to mourn, not so much in the, being the face of the NBA, but going down there and doing that thing down in Birmingham, shagging fly balls, I think it gave him a chance to miss the game a little bit, mourn his father. And then he came back, after that, 94, 95 season. And I wish he would have told me he's coming back. I never would have signed that 8-year deal in Philly, but I love playing with him. And I knew what the success that follows, but the guy refuses to lose at anything. So I always felt like we were going to a playoff series. We might not win every game of the series, but I knew we were going to win the series. And pretty much once he had hit his stride with Pippen, and after Pippen had his little taste of the dream team in 92 and elevated his game, because a lot of people don't remember, Pippen was fantastic in 93, 94 without MJ. He was like number 3 in the MVP voting. Right behind. I thought he and Akeem were right there. Akeem Olajuwon were right there for, could have won co-MVP honors if you ask me. We won, I want to say, 2 fewer games than the year prior. The MJ retired. So Pip had us on point. But my exit with Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson after the 93 season just did not go well. And they told me they had no idea what kind of player I was going to be, and offered me another non-guaranteed contract. And the guys that I was playing in front of were getting 4- and 5-year deals. I'm like, good God, man, what do I got to do? What do I got to prove? Yeah. So I played 46 minutes in Game 3 of a triple overtime game, and one of the longest games in the history of the NBA Finals. I mean, you had me out there for all 3 overtimes in the 4th quarter. So obviously you must think something of me as a player. Yeah. So I knew I needed to leave to get an opportunity to gain some respect elsewhere in the league. But I loved Chicago. I loved my teammates. I loved the fans. And that was probably the biggest takeaway from that 93-94 season, that we just came up a little bit short to the Knicks that year. But I was proud of what we accomplished, given that blow, the losing the game's greatest player.
So that meeting, was it more Krause than it was Phil? Like, how was the air? How was the feel between the players, the staff, and Krause?
It was just,
I know Mike didn't have he didn't have in his last dance, he didn't have his I guess the conclusion of it wasn't great when it came to talking about Krause.
No, all of us had our different battles with Krause, and I had kind of a bittersweet relationship, because in one way, I'm not in the NBA if Jerry Krause doesn't pick up the phone and call my agent and give me an invitation to come to camp. Where Jerry burned his bridge with me was he went to Coach Smith without talking to me and said I was doing drugs. And I said I had never smoked marijuana. I had never done no drugs my entire life. And I didn't smoke my first joint until I was 48 years old, Danny. So I was, Coach Smith came to me and told me this, I was livid. I said, there's nobody I'd ever want to feel like I let down in this world than Coach Smith. And I was waiting for Krause. I was up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I drove to the facility, and we had just moved in to our new training facility, and I was waiting for Krause to show up. And I jumped his SHIT and was up in his fat little face and saying, "Don't you ever put?" I said, "I'll take a drug test right now. Don't you ever put that on me?" And he said, "Oh, we can't drug test you." And we heard from a reliable source, and he never apologized. And
So that's what made him say that, because he heard from a reliable source. Was there something spiraling? Was something happening that made him even come to that conclusion? To
I
be
have
like,
no
oh,
idea where it came from.
Scott's a
Honestly, I
little
have
out of out of
no
character.
idea
It
where
just
it
came out
came
of
from.
nowhere. Okay.
Only thing I could think of was after my rookie year, they put me out in the suburbs of Illinois called Wheeling. And here I am, 22 years old, wanting a championship. I was downtown every night. Big Will was getting his party on downtown, right? So I'm driving back every night up the highway going, this is not good. You know, this is pre-Uber. You know, I go, this is not good. So I got if I'm gonna hang out downtown, I got to live downtown. So I was moving downtown, and they went ape. They did not. Oh, you're gonna be late for practice. You're gonna be stuck in traffic. This, that, and the other. They didn't want me to move downtown. And I said, well, I'm a grown man. I don't think there's anything in the NBA rules that says I can't live downtown. So I moved downtown, and I don't think he liked that. So I think there was that drove a little bit of a wedge that here I am, you know, this young player should be grateful for this opportunity that because Jerry thought he was a little king of everybody, right? Like he thought he strutted around like he was like he had
Napoleon complex.
All these big, taller, more athletic players because he controlled the checkbook, so to speak. And I was always respectful of Phil Jackson, even though I didn't have a great relationship with him. I was always respectable all of my coaches because that was the Carolina way, right, Dan? Yes, sir. And
100%.
You didn't body language was on point. You didn't talk back. My thing was you run for a wall. If the kid asked you to, you know, if one of those coaches, what Johnny Bach would ask me to run through the wall on defense, I would literally give him my best shot. And I think that made Krause upset that here I am being defiant and not doing what he told me to do. But I knew it was the best thing for me. Actually, it worked out to be the greatest thing because we games were downtown. So when everybody else was right there, traffic coming downtown, I had a 15-minute, not even a 15-minute commute, it was like 10-minute commute. It was golden. So I had no stress of being late for the games and getting fined and trying to make sure I got there in time to get my shots up and all that other kind of stuff. It was great. And when everybody was coming into the city in the morning, I was going out of the city in the morning. I had my newspaper on my lap. That's back when we had newspapers. Newspaper on my lap. I had my OJ, you know, and I was cruising, and it was the greatest thing. So that probably for me was the thing that, you know, kind of just chapped my ass with Jerry Krause. So he was kind of the guy in that meeting along with Phil, because Phil's, you know, knows what kind of player I'm. He's the one playing me. He's the one that said, yeah, I don't know what kind of player you are. I should have, you know, all the things you wish you would have said or you dreamt about saying later. Like I didn't speak up for myself because again, here I am trying to be respectful. I'm trying to get another one out of these turkeys too. And I had to sit there and eat it. And I said, you know, well, it's something. This is the last year of my, you know, you can only be an unrestricted free agent after 4 years. I said, after this, I'm gone. And I won't have to deal with this no more.
Scott, you referenced Krause there questioning or wondering if you were smoking weed, and obviously we are living in a very different world as it pertains to that. Even in the NBA, we're just in a different world as it pertains to a number of things. You mentioned the trauma that you had gone through in your childhood and that you had to deal with when you're at North Carolina. What we're seeing now in the NBA, especially in this age of social media, is mental health being prioritized a lot more than it ever was before. I saw here on Tuesday, Andre Drummond, basically a Chicago Bull right now, shut off his social media saying he wants to protect his mental health. Kyrie Irving has stood up for Luka Doncic, saying that you can't, what his comments about him not being happy is not necessarily about how he's playing. It could also be about things going on off the court. Malik Beasley, who now plays for the Los Angeles Lakers, he hasn't claimed mental health, but recently he had to quote unquote clap back at Lakers fans for negative commentary that they put on a recent Instagram post where he was just trying to say happy birthday to a family member. I say
to
all
son.
those things.
Yeah, to his son's birthday.
Yeah, John Morant, I think it's taken some time too here.
John Morant had to go to Florida and deal with how he deals with stress. I'm curious your thoughts now and where we are as a society and where we are right now in the NBA and how the public are viewing athletes now being more vocal about prioritizing and taking care of their mental health, and maybe that's speaking to you even stronger considering your background.
I'm all for it. I'm glad these guys are recognizing that they do need to take care of their mental health. It's a great thing to be a professional athlete. You're always working on your body and conditioning and weight training. But your mental health probably more important than anything when it comes to your overall health. And if you needed some time to take some time away, that's wonderful. I'm glad that there is structure, not only through the league, but also individually with the team, to be able to have people in place to recognize that, to get guys the counseling or the time away that they need.
Yeah,
Danny,
shout out to those
obviously,
guys too. Yeah, I just want to let them know that we're thinking of them, spread my love and positive vibes to them. Drum is a guy that I've been teammates with, and I've known Kai for some time. Obviously, teammates with Ja. A lot of these guys, it's a brotherhood, it's a fraternity. Let them know that we're always thinking of them and sending our prayers to them. And if they need an outlet, they can always reach out to me if they have my number. But they know where to go and who to reach out to. In times of like this or these crises. So yeah, I just want to let the world know, let them know that first of all, it takes a brave person to step forward and say that they have some mental health issues and to publicly acknowledge it. So I just want to encourage them and tell them we're behind them and we're here to support them, so whatever they need, and show them as much love as possible. So for those who are interacting with them or teammates with them, share a locker room with them or know them, be sure to check in on them, give them your support and your love as well.
So on top of winning 3 NBA championships, on top of playing at North Carolina and having a 15-year NBA career, now Scott is a color analyst for Grand Canyon men's and women's basketball. Is that correct? Men's and women's?
Yep. Yes, Harrison.
Okay. All right. So Grand Canyon, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe my brackets aren't lying to me, played in the NCAA tournament against Gonzaga. They ended up losing. Gonzaga eventually got blown out by UConn. But it's fair to say, I assume you've watched your fair share of college basketball. We've got a very unique Final Four, FAU taking on San Diego State, UConn taking on Miami. Who's cutting down the nets?
I wrote that on my pad. I wanted to ask Danny that same question. But you beat me to it, Harrison. So, yes, we're very proud of what the Lopes have done this year. They overcome a lot of injuries. They lost the preseason player of the year, their point guard. Danny, how important a point guard is at college basketball level. They stubbed their toe a few times when they were trying to, get in the top 3 and get a bye. The top 4 that we got a bye in the WAC tournament in Vegas. Ended up finishing outside the top 4, had to play 4 tough games over 5 days to win the conference tournament, the second time in 3 years to make it to the Big Dance. So shout out to all those cats. You mentioned the Irish Hulk earlier, Igahan, and Ray Harrison was a beast this year, Chance McMillan, and my dirt worker, Gabe McLaughlin. So I'll throw him a shout out there as well. And I give Coach Bryce Drew a lot of credit for keeping that team together. They could have splintered and given up and gone a different direction when he was under so much adversity, but he's really built a culture on that program at GCU that is going to be around for a long period of time. One of the top mid-majors year after year. So they're very excited, and we're very excited about what that team can come back and do next year if we don't get poached by all the players in the portal this year, Danny. Like our Tar Heels are getting poached this year. It's getting ridiculous. This tournament this year, my brackets got busted right away. I had Kansas repeat as champions this year. And I felt so good about all my picks this year.
That's when it turns out being the worst. That's when it turns out being the worst.
It has been the absolute worst. After the first 2 days, I was in second place, and now I'm just getting crushed. I don't even look anymore. I have no idea what place I'm in. But you had mentioned the games, UConn and Miami. I gotta feel like the winner of that was probably cutting down the nets. And as much as I respect what they're doing at UConn, I'm pulling, and I don't say this very often, but for the ACC team. I know, Danny, our Tar Heels couldn't make it this year. We were right there in that championship game a year ago, and I love that shot Love had against Duke in the semifinal game and knock out Coach K and send him packing for the rest of his career. Happy trails, Coach K. This year, I honestly think that it's going to be the winner of that game, and I'm hoping it's going to be Miami.
I'm with you with that. I'm gonna try to. I'm pushing for the ACC team, but I think it's gonna be UConn. I think the Cinderella story with FAU is coming to an end very soon. But I think that I think FAU gets to the national championship, surprisingly so, possibly beating the San Diego State. Is that who they playing?
Yep, San Diego State.
I like San Diego State, but I think FAU is gonna upset them. And I see FAU and UConn matching up, and I think UConn's probably going to get that one, but I'm pushing for Miami.
Yeah, the crazy thing about college basketball, though, you think FAU's a Cinderella, then you look at their roster and you realize a bunch of them came from higher, well-known D1 schools like Vlad Golden, the big man, played at Texas Tech. So it's a brand new day in college basketball. That is for sure. Looking forward to seeing what happens there in the Final Four. Coach, not Coach. Scott, it has been a pleasure. I don't know if you have any more gems for us. I know if they really want all the gems, they got to go get the book.
They got to get the
But
book,
if
right?
you-
Right.
Where's the best place?
Here, right? Yeah, the book is Through the Fire, a memoir of trauma of lost basketball and triumph. It just came out on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. It's in Kindle, paperback and a hardcover. So however you like to read, it's not a lot of fluff. It's not, I was born on a cold, windy night in 1968. You don't get all that. Okay. It's got a little jock feel to it. It's kind of written in a way the kids can like it. It's short hitting stories that are impactful. So I get a lot of people saying, "Hey, it triggered me. It brought me to tears. I had to put it down for a little bit." Which I guess is not such a bad thing. So I wanted to stir some emotions in people and realize that, by supporting this book, they're helping support domestic violence centers. So I want it to be real. I want people to connect with it. I think the only real knock I got, people want more. They go, I didn't put it down. I read it start to cover to finish, and they want more. So I go, maybe that's not such a bad knock after all. Maybe we have to figure out how to do a second
Number
one.
two. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, congrats, man, on everything. Thank you once again for joining us, man. It's been a true pleasure and honor, man, to have you on my podcast. I've watching you since I was a youngin', and now having you on my podcast and being a fan of ours, which is crazy. It's everything comes full circle.
Harrison, I'm telling you, inside the green room. I mean, you called me, and when you text me, I was so nervous to send a text today. I go, that dude's gonna look at me like, you don't even know who I am. Why is he texting me? And you got to me right away, invited me on. A few hours later, it meant the world to me, man. That Carolina family bond is strong, my brother. I really appreciate it, guys.
For sure. Thank you, man. Best of luck, and best of luck to everybody else has their brackets for the rest of this weekend coming
nobody's
up.
Nobody's got a right bracket anymore.
The NBA playoffs are coming soon. I said hopefully your boy will be back on the court. I was out a couple days with an illness, but I'll be back soon in a couple of days. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Read, rate, subscribe, review. You know what to do, H.
5 stars, please. See you guys next week. Good stuff.
Scott, man.